Welcome, everybody. Welcome to MAXTape Live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Craig Rector.
And I'm Lindsay Benedetto. And if you have this thought right now that Craig is looking a little different this week,
A little different.
that's because he is. Do you want to tell us about that, Craig?
Well, first off, can y'all guess? Okay, that's enough time to guess. So, I shaved. But I didn't, listen, I'm pretty insecure about it. I didn't shave because I was like, I want to shave. I'm so used to the beard. Mm-hmm. But I was Joker for Halloween.
Yeah.
And Joker doesn't have a beard.
A very believable Joker, might I add. You went all in. I loved it.
Behavior included. Like once you put that makeup on, you know.
Yeah, you like transport.
It's one of the most fun things about Halloween is just it's not just the dress up, but it's like the being able to be another character.
Whomever or whatever you want. I know.
So scared a lot of people. But yeah, so let's talk about today's episode.
Yeah, we sat down with Kaitlyn Moore over at mtheory. She's the VP of marketing. And mtheory is a full marketing services agency, if you will. They work with artist managers or artists directly to help them with their marketing efforts, digital, social, all the things. So
mtheory, not only does the full service artist marketing, but of course can just fill in the gaps of what an artist team needs. So if an artist or artist manager and team needs everything handled from digital and social and tour marketing and the whole gamut, they can handle that, or they can just kind of fill in where's the most stressful for the artist team. So again, I can't talk enough about the amazing work that they just do in general and what a great partner that they've been. So it's going to be a fun conversation. We got into a lot of good, very nitty gritty details of the data and the fan base building and marketing strategies and tips for, established artists as well as the young budding artists. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned and hope you enjoy.
Teleprompters are one thing that I feel like every artist should have some kind of teleprompter app or liners are just tough.
Yeah. Even I'm amazed at the artist, like the different concerts I've gone to where, there are some artists who will absolutely have their prompter with their lyrics on the screen in the back. But first of all, I'm like, if they're at a huge arena, like Beyonce, for example, she had her lyrics on a teleprompter in the back. But I kind of wanted to be like, can she even read that though? Like it was so far away because, like the stadiums are huge. The venues are huge that she's performing at. So, and then Taylor Swift, for example, I also went to her concert and she didn't have anything, no teleprompter. And I'm like, wow.
It's because Beyonce has perfect eyesight and Taylor Swift has a great memory. So
it must be it. It must be it. Also, some of Beyonce's songs, like they're so fast and jam packed with lyrics and words that I'm like, I can't even read and keep up. So that's.
I feel like it's got to be like a comfort thing, like just knowing that it's there if you have a moment.
That's such a great point. There was this one time, I'll just personal story time here. I was singing at a memorial service that was being hosted at my church, and this family wanted this like super old song. I had never heard of it. It's so obscure and abstract. Anyway, so of course the sound guys in the back, they're supposed to like have the lyrics up for me. I mean, I had been rehearsing, but when it's a new song, I was really depending on the lyrics. And they accidentally put up, so on this new song, they put up the lyrics to the song I had sang before, but the pianist had already started playing. And of course, at a memorial service, it's not one of those moments where you can be like, wait, stop, we need to start over. It was just like, we're doing this. We are doing this. And all I could remember was the first line of the song, and I sang that line over and over again, like it was supposed to be that way. I think the family was probably mortified, but I'm like, you just have to like perform at that point. And I'm sure you have stories too, where you're like from your artist performing days. Yeah. There's nothing like that abject terror, that pit in your stomach.
So when I would perform, especially at the beginning when I just started doing open mic nights and testing out materials and stuff like that, I would write a new song and I would immediately like write the melody or the hook. And I would be so excited about this new song. Of course, I just wanted to play it. And so my best friend Stu called these my Craigisms, where I would get up there and I would make up and kind of mumble in this beautiful melody in ways that kind of sounded like words. And then I would get to the hook or whatever I'd written and then sing it. And so I actually got really used to just making stuff up, verses and stuff like that. And people be like, that was such a beautiful song. I'm like, you have no idea what I said.
Yeah.
You have no idea. It just sounded great.
Honestly, it's like mildly infuriating, but also it's so Craig of you to be like, no, I'm actually really great in situations like that because I just make stuff up all the time.
Just
like, oh my gosh.
I feel like a lot of artists
I'm actually really good at that. What?
That's when artists like turn the mic on to the fans.
Yeah,
and they're like,
exactly.
Okay,
yeah, you sing,
Well,
everybody.
What I'm not great at is actually Nathan Hanks, CEO at Max, he freestyle raps, and
I didn't know this.
Yeah, and I mean he is incredible with it.
Wow.
And he's just so good at just making up words. And he used to be like people would say something and he would just go off on a rap about whatever somebody was talking about. So he does it less now, but I'm not good at that. I'm just good at like, oh, well, I don't know. So I'm gonna, I just have no shame and I'll just roll with it and confidently mumble.
Confidently. That's awesome. Anyway.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Fun times. Do you have do you perform at all or
I do
play
not.
or write?
Very much no.
What is your creative outlet?
Gosh, I don't know. When I was younger, I did dance growing up. I was on a dance team and all of that. So I feel like that did kind of get me into the music space, just connecting with lyrics and that sort of thing. Now I don't really have a super creative outlet, I feel like.
Well, I mean, you work in such a creative industry, and so and in a creative profession, like marketing. So, and I'm interested. You said dance was kind of your creative outlet, and that's what really got you onto like lyrics and movement. But then, how did that progress throughout your education and then early in your career? I mean, you're in music marketing, so like, how do we get here?
Yeah, so I went to Syracuse for college, actually went in as a broadcast journalism major and very quickly realized that I did not want to be on camera. So
she does not want to read the teleprompter.
No, I was like, this is not cool. And they actually have a really good program where they make the freshman class be the behind the scenes crew for the seniors newscast. So you're able to kind of see all sides of it and learn pretty quickly what you do and don't want to do. So I switched over to television, radio, and film to kind of get that behind the scenes education. And at the time, Syracuse was launching a program called the Bandier Program for music and entertainment industries. And I was a little bit ahead of it, but ended up petitioning my way in as a dual major between that and television, radio, and film. And ended up actually being the first graduate from that program. I was kind of the guinea pig going through it. But it was fun. It was the program is a mix.
Created the mold for everyone else.
Yeah, I love that.
I tried.
So everyone else who goes through that program is following in your footsteps.
Yeah, it was a mix of courses in the communication school, the music school, and the business school. So we really got a well-rounded kind of education, and then had internships and a semester in London as well. So
I'm sure that was incredible.
It was. I feel like the internships, though, that's what brought me to Nashville. And I interned at a management company and a record label, and kind of got to see how all of those operated, and really just loved the management side of it and being so close to the artist and having your hands in all different parts of the artist's career.
Yeah. And so then what was the path from there to mtheory?
I worked at Borman Entertainment with my now boss, Cameo Carlson. And I was doing social media, website, everything for Keith Urban. And I was there for a few years, loved it, learned so much about socials, marketing, fan engagement, everything. And then went to a couple different companies. And when she was starting the Nashville office for mtheory, she brought me back. And we were the first two here in town, just without an office, hopping around coffee shops. And now there's 15 of us here in Nashville. There's 7 or 8 in New York. And then we have offices in New Orleans and LA.
Wow,
so
quite
cool.
a footprint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Female leadership. I love to hear it.
Yeah. So
it's awesome.
So you were also, amongst really some of the first to adopt Set.Live. And so I'd be very interested to know, like early on, what was that path of learning about Set.Live, and where was the mindset when you saw a tool like that? Again, very young, very new, largely untested, but with a lot of promise. How do you go about that process of adopting a new tech tool like that?
I think it's always a challenge to make sure you're not putting the artist in a situation where something doesn't work, but also being innovative to want to try new things. And I think one of the struggles that we have across all artists is the data piece, and especially the touring data, and the fact that venues don't share emails of purchasers with the artists. And a lot of artists actually don't realize that. And it's a big realization when you tell them.
A lot of them just assume that, of course we get it.
Yeah. That they can retarget those people after. And you're like, no, actually, Ticketmaster or the venues own that. So I feel like we've always tried to be creative in how we capture those people. And I can't remember. I feel like the first one we used it with was probably Trace Adkins. And his demographic is a bit older, and we weren't sure how it was going to work. But I believe we did a QR code on the screens, and most of his venues are casinos and theaters. And then he just has such a recognizable voice.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did an audio liner that played before each show. And it's amazing looking at the results and seeing the spikes when that audio liner plays. And I think just having it be such a simple interaction for the fans, especially when you do have an older demographic, it's easy for them to just go in and sign up. And I think we learned pretty quickly too that the ask didn't have to be that big, or the reward didn't have to be that big. I think we just do a giveaway at the end of each tour, and we haven't seen that doing something every night leads to more engagement than just one prize at the end of the tour.
So that's interesting. So doing just a bigger something at the end,
signed guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
Which makes it an easier lift on the crew that's out there every night, because they aren't having to pick a winner and notify people. And we just have a bigger pool at the end to pull winners from.
Yeah. So that's in the example of Trace. And I love that example. We use him as a resource in some of our documents that we share with all new onboarding artists to Set.Live, because it's such it's easy, low lift, high ROI, an easy way to implement. But what are some of the other ways that your other artists are implementing Set.Live in their shows? Because I know we've got several artists that you guys currently work with who are using our tech.
I think it's really just figuring out what the artist is comfortable with, and seeing if there's multiple touch points that you can do. So doing the QR code on the screens plus the voice liner. We have some that will actually stop the show and say it out loud. So one of the easier ways we've found to do that feels more organic, is if somebody is going to take a picture with the crowd each night, they can say, sign up here and I'll send you the picture at the end of the night. And then we have that email list that we can automatically send the picture to. The fans feel like they're getting something. The artist was going to do that anyways during the set, so it's just an added element to that. And then we have some who aren't comfortable doing any of those and just have a QR code at the merch booth. And I feel like that is a lower lift on everyone's end, but still you do capture people. So I think just figuring out the levels of what the artist is comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's like almost kind of a set it and forget it mode. You just set up all your shows, you put the sign there, and you're not going to capture a ton, but you're still going to be playing shows. You're still going to have a merch booth, and with zero, lift, it's you're getting something.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I actually had this week, I had a venue reach out to me asking if a band would sign a poster while they were at the show so the venue could do a giveaway to build their email list. And I was like, we will do it if you add an opt-in or share those emails with the band. And they said no. And
really?
I was like, well,
how's that going to work then? Right?
Right? They were like, we're not sharing the data
What's
on
in
our
it for
page.
me?
So this would be a situation then where you'll have the ticketing company who doesn't share that information selling the tickets and is not even sharing that information with the venue.
Yeah.
And so then the venue's like,
so.
well, we also want that information, but we don't want to share it with the artists either. So it's just like everyone's, I mean, probably rightfully so to protect that data, but it's, it should be the artist's information to say, which is crazy that none of this information for any of these companies exists without the artists, like the work that they've done to create this fan base. And so to stiff arm the artist community specifically, riding on the coattails of their success is pretty backwards.
Yeah. Well, Craig says it like this, who we are as a company is all about democratizing music in favor of the artist because it's so lopsided. It's like the venue or the ticketing companies, they can't acquire any of that information without the artist. The artist is literally the point.
Yeah.
So, the creative at the epicenter, so that's maddening.
Yeah. I feel like one thing we try to do at mtheory is look at all of the different touch points that we have either during a tour or an album cycle to collect that data and bring those fans in. And one thing I think gets overlooked a lot of times is just offering a pre-sale for fans. Yeah. And we use platforms that let you collect those email addresses and phone numbers, and then it will automatically send a notification to the fans on pre-sale day with the password and whatnot. And it not only lets us collect that data, but it also lets us see how many signups there are for each market before the show goes on tour. So we can see, okay, if this show has 400 signups and it's only a 500 cap venue, maybe we can add a second
pre-sale, then let's do another show.
Yeah, it lets us be a little more strategic there without just going up on sale and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
And so where are all the places so you have your pre-sale, you have your live show, like where are all the other places that you all have explored trying to kind of pull that fan information and fan data? Like where are all the places that, whether it's difficult or hard, where it's somewhat available, where you can, do it more than just, live or around your concerts?
I think, one of the things that I don't think is used as much is just a simple giveaway for anything. And whether it be just creating a Google form to set up an email giveaway, or there's a platform we use called Feature FM, which lets you do a connect with Spotify or Apple, and drives engagement on the streaming platforms, but also gives you that email data. And using that within the cycle, whether it's giving away tickets to a show or just encouraging fans to pre-save and giving them something in return. I also think there's platforms that you might not realize have a lot of data that's easily tapped into. One is Bands in Town. And I think they have all of their trackers, and now they have a free email builder in there, and you can go in and geo-target for different markets and send a free email to those people. And I've been amazed at how many trackers artists have in there, like hundreds of thousands, and you can just tap into them at any time.
So is that through this feature in Bands in Town, you're implementing a campaign to then collect the information, or is it in their database and you're able to target and send emails that you don't actually own?
Sending emails to the people that you don't actually own. So I think we try to balance out tour emails, and it's grindy, but sending a month out from the show, 2 weeks out from the show, just replicating a template and having that there. Yeah. And then I think replicating the emails that we send to the artist's regular email list in there as well to try to bring them over into our owned database. And I've been amazed, honestly, too, at the open rates on there for the geo-targeted emails. We're seeing sometimes 50+% open rate.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's at least 2x industry benchmarks for a subscriber list. So, obviously every episode, what we're all about is, more than just data collection, but the understanding who your fan base is, building that is one of the most important things that we believe an artist can do. And so we talk about it a lot, but it's interesting to hear the different perspectives on why, you often will hear about industry-wide, everywhere you go, how frustrating it is to get the information from ticketing companies and from venues and, and on social and, to really know who your fans are. And it's just so important. But then I don't know that a lot of, I say a lot of, a large percent of, artist teams and artists themselves do it. And so one, in your words, what is the importance of that information and how it's used and what it can actually mean for an artist's career? And then two, why with that importance do a lot of artists and teams just seem not to do it?
I think it varies from artist to artist. I think the most important thing is just having an audience that you do own, because all of these social platforms, bands in town, any of them, they could disappear tomorrow. And then all of those people are gone and you don't have a touch point to them. So anything that we can do to bring them into a text list, an email list, when we onboard a new artist and a manager, we do a deep dive into all of their socials, all of their website, and really make sure one of the things that's set up is pixels and collecting that data when people are visiting the website, visiting any of the short links that we're posting, because those are retargeting pools that then we can sell ads to. And I think that's one of the things that's missed a lot. I honestly think that sometimes it gets missed just because there's not bandwidth to do it. Yeah. And artist to artist too, if you're in a major label deal, sometimes your label owns your website and your email list, and you just don't have access to tap into that, or you're going through a third party to try to do that. So we try to advocate for the artist owning all of those touch points as they negotiate their deals.
Mm-hmm. So let's say it's the label that owns the website, they run the social. Let's just say that, I don't know how much, if there's varying control. And I don't know if you even have artists that are in that situation when they're collecting then the PII on their fans. Does that then also contractually belong to the label, or is it, if they're doing that stuff themselves, they're able to hold on to it and keep it themselves?
Yeah, it depends. We have some email lists that are controlled by the artist, and if we were to do a giveaway on our own, I think Warner has a 14-day period where you're not allowed to message people if you collected them on your own and then put them into your database. Okay. So it's 14 days that they can unsubscribe if they want to.
But that's just more mindful of a data cleanliness and just making sure that.
Yeah. A lot of them too, if it is an email list that's run by the label, we obviously have to have their privacy policy and their terms and conditions on any giveaways that we do, or Set.Live when we run that. So we definitely have more freedom when we own it ourselves, it's still a catch-22 because typically if the label owns it, you're not paying for those email lists. And if you're owning it yourself, it does get expensive. It's a cost that the artist has to take on. I would argue, though, that if you're mining that for ticket sales and merchandise sales, you can see ROI from those campaigns. And ROI is something that is sometimes hard to measure in this industry because of the way that the data is split. Yeah. But if you send an email blast and see you got $10,000 in merch sales, that's an easy way to make it worthwhile. Or
you have the email list and you've converted a certain number to subscribers for.
Yeah.
So then, and when you say cost, just for clarity, we're talking about like not the cost of just having the list, because you can have a spreadsheet and Google Sheets and that's free. But you're talking about when you're building that list, it's got to be somewhere. You've got to, if you're going to reach out to them, MailChimp, Klaviyo,
have a
community,
platform,
whatever. And there's a cost associated sometimes with, storing it with them and then also reaching out. And most of the time it's just the storage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which becomes tough sometimes because I feel like artists are usually afraid to email people too often. And I understand that, but I'm also like, okay, if you're paying $1,000 a month to store these emails, you have to hit them regularly in order to make that effective. And I look at all of these brands and like stores that you get emails from on a daily basis or weekly basis. And I think it's figuring out, looking at unsubscribe rates. But I do feel like there's opportunity to hit people more often than artists are maybe comfortable with without seeing a drop off there, as long as you're giving them something that is worthwhile.
Which is interesting because when you look at, email is probably viewed less as social, obviously, and it is more of a communication mechanism. So when I use email, it needs to be a form of, communication and instead of just an expression of, who I am. But, artists create a lot of content for social, and they go through a lot of effort to build that presence. And there's not much that you can get in return. And so do you advocate for, obviously you need to build a relationship, you need to create a proper conversation. It needs to not always be an asking for from fans. But do you advocate for like exclusive content that is only for that subscriber list, that instead of putting it on social, you're like, if you want, like for my fans that I can talk directly to, that there is unique content that is, created specifically for those people.
Yeah, I think that's important. I also think it doesn't necessarily have to be exclusive forever. So even if you're just giving them a first look at something or they get it 24 hours before, that feels like they're getting something. I think it's so tough for artists right now in the content space because you just need so much content for any given release and there's no break. And I think once you reach a certain level, I think you can dictate how you post about a song and how you roll that out, and you're not posting 4 times a day on TikTok. But the younger artists that are trying to play that game, I mean, I think that's what they're telling people now is 2 times a day on TikTok every day. And it's just so much content. It gets expensive and it gets tiring for the artist.
Well, and what's interesting, I mean, the algorithm, everything's constantly changing. Audiences are different, age group. I mean, everything is so different that when you say like, oh, post 2 times a day, it's like, oh, well, then I can pull up another expert that says, it's not 2 times a day. It's if you just do it once a day, or at least do it a few times a week and just be consistent. Or it just needs to be good content. And then over here, it's like, well, if you just do, anything and, quantity is...
Nobody knows.
Such conflicting information out there.
It's just the Wild West. I feel like everyone's just throwing stuff up, seeing what sticks. And
and you know what they say, a confused mind does nothing. So I can only imagine how confusing it is for, artists to be able to cut through that loud noise and do something that's meaningful and also impactful, like impacts the bottom line. So I'm curious, from your perspective, your seat, I mean, I think it sounds like artists are exhausted trying to crank out content, whether it's email or on different social platforms. But what else are you seeing as being feeding the apprehension that artists have in emailing their people who have subscribed to their list?
I think it's probably just the unknown too. I think email is one thing that the artist probably isn't in themselves and like physically sending those emails themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think they're trusting their team. The team has a million things to do. And I think just figuring out what that content is on a more regular basis is tough too, and having somebody to actually build it.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think you mentioned in one of your emails to us that you're passionate about artists who either work with a very small team or they're a one-woman or a one-man show, and they're managing their own marketing efforts in addition to being the creative behind their career and the musicians. So what would you say to those artists who don't have people like you or like mtheory who are doing the email content for them and managing all of those different pieces? Where do they start, or how can they compartmentalize or distill down things that feel just, really big and like a lot of effort and time to, this is, my one next right thing that I could do right now?
An easy start would be to hire mtheory.
Right. So step one.
Starting point.
Step one.
One thing that I think is super valuable and something that we see as missed when we do those digital audits a lot of times off the bat is having a welcome email when somebody signs up for your email list. I can't tell you how many times I sign up for a list digging into something and either don't get something back or get something back that was created 5 years ago.
Garbage.
And is completely outdated.
Heinous.
And a lot of the email platforms now not only let you create a welcome email, but let you create a flow that bring people through a series of 2 or 3 emails after they sign up. And I think it's super easy takes about 10 minutes to set up out of the gate. And then, every time someone signs up to your list, they're getting that. I think that's super valuable real estate to push your streaming platforms, your latest release. I do think making it more generic, just so you're not having to constantly go update it, because we do find that they don't get updated. But there are ways to use a short link that automatically goes to your latest content or something that updates on its own. And then it's taking anyone who engaged with that email and sending them a merch code or finding some way to bring them deeper into your ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Just investing in the tech or software that helps artists work smarter and not harder. You spend a little time up front setting up the workflow and the customer journey process, and then you let it run its course, Well,
and you all handle artists of varying sizes. And so I'm sure you have do you have a tiered approach with, is it like, we use Klaviyo, we use Community, and this is, when you work with us, this is what we use? Or is it like, hey, you're a smaller artist, we need to be more budget friendly, use this platform as we're going to use this platform as a tool? Like, what are the less expensive options for managing that data and list?
Yeah. So the way we operate is we partner with managers to supplement their teams. So if a manager comes in and wants to work with us, we will work across all of their artists, no matter the size. We lean on the manager to kind of prioritize and tell us where they need the help leaning in. But because of that nature, a lot of people that come to us already have platforms set up. So I will say on that deep dive audit right off the bat, we can kind of flag if it's a platform we haven't worked with, if it's one that we've seen issues with. And that's the chance for us to recommend any changes. I will say sometimes they just like what they're using and don't change. And then it's either an opportunity for us to learn a new platform and figure out how to make it work, or over time make them change. I think Klaviyo and MailChimp are the two kind of biggest ones we use for most artists. On an average list for a smaller artist, it's not too expensive. Where it gets expensive is when you get to 50 to 100,000 emails, and then you're paying a few $100s, if not upwards of $1,000 a month for those platforms. Sometimes you're able to work those into your merch deal or your website deal and have it be more of an enterprise account that is technically under their umbrella, and that ends up being some cost savings. But I think we always just have to get creative and figure out where the artist wants to spend their money. And sometimes it is if the artist is, or if the label is running an email list and the artist doesn't have budget, then maybe that is a give that, at least if the label is willing to work with us and on strategies, then it's okay if they have that.
So there's instances then where you're advocating between the artist's needs and wants and whatnot to the label as well.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's great. What, how do you knowing that when you're in MailChimp, you're in Klaviyo, you're in these platforms, and oftentimes you're being charged based on the number of contacts, which, as a marketer, my first thought is, okay, well, are all of those contacts relevant?
Are they good?
Are they engaging? Is there, being value? Is there scenarios where you don't necessarily want to get rid of the data, but you don't want to be paying for the data in the platform either? So is there like a process for archiving to the ones you're actually actively sending, or is it like, no, we want to make sure that everybody's...
No, a lot of times those platforms do have their own systems for if someone doesn't open 3 times or if it bounces back, they'll get removed from the list. So that's helpful. I think just being smart about the targeting. If we have a really high-end merch item that we're trying to sell, we might just target the past purchasers or the past top purchasers. I think segmenting it that way. I also think there's emails that you're collecting other places that you probably aren't feeding into that list regularly. So going into your Shopify or Set.live, I know has automatic integrations where the data can feed in, but making sure all of those touch points are set up so you know that you have the most up-to-date list and you don't have 2,000 people sitting in a merch account that aren't getting hit at all.
So we were talking a lot about email, but earlier you had also mentioned it's important to collect phone numbers, which Set.live does. So what is the, what do you see in the value between texting versus emailing in one, cost, and then in 2, in a trackable return on doing some of the same promo, or is it different promo? Like, are you doing different messages to text, or is it just we're doing kind of similar messaging? This one's just formatted for text, this one's email, and what is that return and the value between the two?
I think the SMS conversations are more conversational. I know there's some platforms that actually let the artists talk to people on a one-on-one basis. I think those are valuable if the artist is going to get in there. If they're not, I think there's text platforms that you basically use it as a broadcast channel. And it's typically similar messaging to what you would put in email, but shorter, more concise. I do think texts people open right away. They tend to. So figuring out the timing between that and email. I think for a tour launch, we want to make sure that goes out right when the tour is launched, whereas email, we might send a half an hour before, not knowing when people are going to check their inbox. I also think kind of staggering it and using them both. So if you have a tour launch, you might do an email blast with the tour announce, a text message the day before pre-sale starts to try to get people in, an email later in the week for a last chance pre-sale push. I think you can stagger both of them. It does get pricey though. So I think for smaller artists, like figuring out where they want to focus on and which one they want to build is a smart move.
Well, what are you guys doing or are you using any specific tech or tools to gather more information on the people you do have in your artist lists to help further segment those lists for the different comms? And are there people that you're primarily texting only versus both email and text messaging? What does the segmentation look like for you guys? And what type of results have you gotten from both?
That definitely varies artist to artist and kind of what they have going on. I think one of the biggest things is just geo-targeting on the touring side. I think making sure that when you have an email sign up, you're collecting the country, the postal code. I think that gets missed a lot. And then you have a list of 5,000 people, but you don't know where any of them are.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things in our big audit that we focus on, is just making sure that's optimized. And then because we work with the managers, and in most cases managers make the most of their revenue from touring, we're heavily focused on that touring space and selling tickets. So it does end up being a lot of geo-targeted, location-based segmentation. And then I would say on the merch side is where we tend to hit past purchasers, top purchasers, or top engagers on socials, and utilizing those audiences. We found with ad campaigns recently too, on the front end, trying to build a retargeting audience of people who have engaged with certain posts or have watched videos a percentage of the way through.
Yeah.
Those are audiences that are easy to retarget, and you know that they're engaged fans.
Yeah. I love that. That's super cool. So I want to make sure we get to some of the fun questions as well, because we're asking every single one of our guests on the podcast a few of these questions. First, what is your most memorable concert, if you have one, or can you recall the very first concert you ever went to?
Oh, geez. I think my first concert was NSYNC and Backstreet Boys combined.
Okay,
Wow.
so please.
Boy band overload.
Boy band overload, but also, like, I'm loving this. And are you like the rest of us who are wondering if NSYNC is going to come back together and make a tour announcement?
I have heard those rumors. I don't know if it's happening.
I mean, none of us really
I've
know,
seen
but
the
every
teased
time they put something
TikToks, and why would they do that, knowing that we want it so bad? Why would they tease that
Just-
and then not?
I know.
It'd be so cruel.
But we're still like waiting with bated breath, though. That's the thing. It's like it feels like a long teaser.
Yeah.
This is a long from when they launched the Trolls song or whatever. I mean, it feels like we've been doing this for a couple weeks now, and it's feeling a little abusive.
Like a letdown.
Yes, I really, the people need to know, and NSYNC, give the people what they want.
But yet we're talking about the anticipation, which in and of itself is great marketing.
Right.
Whose side are you on, Craig?
Always on the side of data and marketing.
Most memorable concert, though, one of my most recent memorable ones, I got to go to Ed Sheeran's theater show in Seattle, and seeing him in that intimate kind of style venue was really cool. I loved how he did that with this tour and did the big stadiums, but then did the underplays.
So were you in Seattle for something else, or was this literally one of those moments where you're such a diehard fan that you're ready to fly all the way to Seattle to see this?
I lucked out, and one of the artists I worked with opened for the theater show.
See?
When business and pleasure collide.
Yep.
Which artist opened?
Brandy Clark.
Brandy Clark.
Okay,
I love that.
It was a great show.
I love those intimate shows when they're in smaller venues and you really do feel like you could just reach out and touch the artist. There's nothing like that. I was at John Mayer last week, and he came through Dallas, but he played at American Airlines. It was a solo tour, so it was just him and a guitar. It wasn't the full band. And we were in the nosebleeds, and it doesn't have that same impact. The whole like fireside moment, small, intimate
Fireside
solo
moment in the arena.
Huge arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't working for me, and people were walking around and talking, and he's singing Gravity, and I'm like, people, this This is one of the greatest songs.
And it was solo?
It was solo, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that song itself, there's lots of, I mean, I can just hear like gravity. And then all of a sudden everything's just quiet and empty.
Did they have big production to kind of make it seem like?
No. He incorporated some old footage of like early John Mayer on a digital board behind him. But I mean, that was it. There was maybe like 3 minutes total of that in a 2-hour-ish concert. So
yeah. I know that he can absolutely fill the arena, but for something like that,
he can, because he
put
came
it in a theater, do
exactly,
you know, and then just do
multiple nights,
multiple shows. Even charge more.
What?
You can charge more too. It's more intimate and exclusive.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a letdown. But anyway, so that triggered my memory on that, Kaitlyn. But that's very cool. I'd love to see Ed Sheeran.
Yeah,
that's great.
Oh, so when we asked this, Chris Fox, what's an artist that you would love to see at the Sphere?
Ooh. I don't know. I mean, Ed Sheeran is one of my like top listen to every year.
Do you think that from a stage performance standpoint that he could?
I feel like he
could
could
fill it. Yeah, command.
Command the
with all
screens
that.
And
yeah.
That's an interesting one to me.
You know, not that this guy's popular. Do you guys know who Ren is?
Mm-mm.
I think so. Look up Ren, R-E-N music. He's, I believe, out of Great Britain, and he's, at least that's his accent. So pardon me if that's not where Ren is from. But some very incredible creative songwriting and what feels very low budget but very creative music videos that he does. And I don't know, I'm just curious to see what an artist like that. He also he kind of does this kind of syncopated rap kind of style of singing, but then he also all of a sudden he'll sing and you're like, oh wow, like this, it's got some pipes, and then he can play the guitar, and you can tell he's like probably classically trained. And anyways, I don't know, that'd be fun to see just a budding artist do something, because you can tell he's got a very creative mind.
Yeah.
I will say there was an event, we were working with Casey Musgrave's team around her Golden Hour release, and for an industry event here in Nashville for a listening party, they did it at the planetarium, and they had content that spanned the entire ceiling of the planetarium. So you sat there and listened to the music, and they had all of these visuals going with it. And that's probably the closest thing to the Sphere, but it was such an immersive experience.
Yes. I love immersive
it was cool.
experiences.
And was the stuff that was displayed, was it just visually exciting stuff, or was it coordinated and synced to,
It was synced to the music.
The lyrics.
Yeah. Yep. Each song had its own visual.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
So y'all are probably not going to be as excited as this with me, but since we're wrapping up and we're talking about music and the power of music, all that. So the Texas Rangers, won the World Series for the first time.
Sure did.
In history. So big moment. Of course, my wife and I went to game 2. So the only game that they lost. So we were going to go to more games, but we said, what if they lost because we were there? So we took one for the team, and we decided not to go to other games.
Out. Wow.
Yeah. We actually almost thought that, well, maybe it's the home team that loses if we go, so maybe we should travel to Arizona and so that they lose, but I think they did all right. But anyway, so I don't know if you guys know this kind of story with music with the Rangers, but they started out the season incredible. I mean, they're like, this is the World Series team. And then halfway through the season, probably not even halfway, they just started sucking. And I mean, really bad. Like they fell almost out of contention. And then in the locker room, apparently they started playing Creed as just a way to change it up, and everybody kind of NSYNC and energy, and then they started playing it at the stadium when they play, and they started winning game after game after game. And so there's like a big tribute to Creed, like that, Creed saved the Rangers. Like Creed is, responsible for the World Series. The history making Texas Rangers winning the World Series, and they were actually at the ACLS. I don't know if it was all of them, but they made it there and they had an appearance. But when we went, of course, there was the part in the game where they're playing, the Take Me Higher or Higher. And of course, and they have like the lyrics up and everybody's singing, and it was a cool moment to see the whole stadium, like at a sports game, not during a concert, just passionately belting out, old emo rock, Creed, which I did love Creed. Everyone hated Creed. I did love them.
That's not
I grew up
surprising
a
to
Red
me.
Sox fan, and I feel like Sweet Caroline, whenever that comes on at a game, just the energy in Fenway is crazy.
Music is just so uniquely unifying, where and sports can be too, but also sports are incredibly polarizing, right? Because people are cheering for different teams, but
even in the same experience, you can be having very polarizing experiences.
Yeah, it can be totally different. And then all of a sudden, they play Creed, and everybody, regardless of the team that you're cheering for, is like having this moment together. I felt like when I went to Taylor Swift and Beyonce as well, there wasn't a happier place on earth. I think maybe the concert experiences rivaled Disney World.
I've heard that with the Taylor movie too, that the theaters are just...
Yeah, total chaos in there. I definitely went to a chaos show. Well, we were the chaos at our showing, my friend group and I. So we were definitely belting the songs out the entire time. But yeah, there's just... And people celebrate and encourage that type of behavior when you're at concerts or you're at like tour movies like that, because it just, there's something so like warm and feel good about it.
You feel like you're part of the community, and
you do.
The artist represents that.
And the outfits were celebrated, and I mean, like you were complimented everywhere you went. Everyone, like, you don't have experiences in life like that when you meet up with thousands of other people in the same location as you do when you go to a concert that everyone's there to see the same person, and we're all just decked out in our silver sparkles, for Beyonce. It's like, it's truly magical. It's euphoric. Yeah.
I wonder if there's something with, and I'm sure I've thought about this before, but it's a unique thought in my conscious perspective right now. So, like when you play certain frequencies and whatnot, and it makes glass vibrate, and, I'm wondering if there's something about the music, the melody, the tone, obviously the rhythm that is tuning something in like all of our brains to the same frequency. And that is what potentially helps that group experience.
Okay, well, that's reminding me of articles.
Like an actual physiological experience.
Yes, I've read articles before, and this is specific to worship music in an evangelical context, right? But there have been studies that have shown that if you write music with a certain chord progression, certain tempo, speed, it's got all this combination. It's a formula, if you will, to elicit an emotional response from people. And I think it's like that. I think there is something chemically like in our brains that just, you hear a certain song and it's the right lyrics.
It brings out that emotion.
Yes. And it's very interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Because also I feel like there's a little bit of an underbelly to that. Like, is it control? Is this mind control right now via music? I don't know. Anyway, we could totally derail and go off on that. But
yeah,
Kaitlyn,
I think you had a 12 o'clock hard stop, so I want to make sure that we get you off for that. But Kaitlyn, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, really have appreciated your time today and just your thoughts and experience, what you're seeing. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And
we'll have you back for a part 2.
Yeah,
we'll see you on the flip side.
Awesome. I'm game.
Thanks, Kaitlyn.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us for MAXTape Live today. We had a really stimulating conversation with Kaitlyn. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
And if you agree, please be sure to like, follow,
share,
comment.
subscribe, comment.
And you know what? We're going to see you next time.